Sorry. Magandang hapon sa inyo, aking mga kamag-aral. At sa ating profesor na bait. Pasensya na, gabi na dito sa London. Medyo malamig eh. Okay, kami nga po pala ang Fourth Age. So, ano ang Fourth Age? Fourth Age is the United Christian Europe from 960 to 1517. So, explain ko yung topic namin. A United Christian Europe, High Middle Ages, Holy Roman Empire, society, nobility, and church grow stronger. Feudal system became organized. Political entity of lands in Western and Central. Europe, founded by Charlemagne. Si Charlemagne ay yung pinsan ni Charmander. Pero joke lang yon. Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great, in year 800, and dissolved by Emperor Francis II in 1806. The extent and strength of the empire largely depended on the military, diplomatic skills of the emperors, both of which fluctuated considerable during the emperor's 1,000-year lifetime. However, the principal area of the empire was the German states. From the 10th century, its leaders were German kings who usually sought but did not always receive coronation as the emperor. Oy, Bitoy, may tanong ako sa'yo. Huwag ka matulog, ha? Sino si Charlemagne?
Good afternoon, guys. I'm here to inspire you, to motivate you, to move you through the hardships, trials, and struggles of the church. It all started in 800 to 1073. This is the development of feudalism. Feudalism is considered as a product of political instability aggravated by the common people's feelings of helplessness in the face of siege by wearing neighboring barbarians. I will show you a clip that I made to visualize that what is feudalism in the Middle Ages. Go!
As we already learned, the Middle Ages started after the fall of Rome. And after the fall of Rome, many different peoples wanted to take over control of different little areas of land in Western Europe. And most of these people fought, and the strongest ones were the ones who were able to take over the land. And a lot of these kingdoms were monarchy. So you got a king. So you got a king on the top. And we learned about Charlemagne. One of these things that Charlemagne also did is he came up with beginnings of a system in Europe that would help offer protection for the entire country. This system is called feudalism. So your king life is pretty good. It is pretty good because you have this large area of land. Feels good to be a king, right? Problem is, there are a lot of different people who want to take control of your land. Maybe you have a group of people over here called the barbarians who wanted to take over. But in any case, our monarch is not able to protect all of this land by himself, so what on earth a king supposed to do? Well, one thing a king can do is split up his kingdom. In fact, Charlemagne, we learned, split his kingdom into at least 350 different sections. I'm gonna draw 4 because I don't wanna draw 350. And then you find people you trust, and you offer them parts of the land. These people are called nobles, and because the king in theory owns all of the land, the nobles are able to gain possession of land from the king. As you can imagine, this led to fighting over who gets the best land or who gets the most land. And oftentimes the nobles would become much more powerful than the actual monarch himself. So many monarchs were not able to afford building their or creating their own army. And in some cases, the nobles were much more wealthy than the monarchs themselves. So now, you think you have nobles in charge of different pieces of land. And of course, the monarch will keep land for himself as well. You need people to protect the land. So what would happen is now the noble owns his huge chunk of land here. And they would offer up pieces of land to people who would able to fight and protect that land. They were known as knights. One of the knights' job is to protect the land. And we're not quite done yet. We got the monarch who owns all the land, who gives part of the land to the nobles, who then in turn gives part of the land to the knights. But you still don't have is probably the most important food. You don't have weapons. So what happened is you got all the other people who are the peasants who were allowed to rent the land in exchange for providing all those things, weapons, food, the tools, etc. to the knights and to the nobles. As you can see, feudalism is really a series of promises. It's a system that relies on promises and loyalty. The monarch gives the nobles land. In exchange, the nobles provide the monarch protection and taxes, usually in the form of food. So the noble, in turn, give the knights land. In exchange, the knights promise to protect and fight for the nobles, and finally, the knights and the nobles gives the peasants protection, and in exchange, the peasants provide the knights and nobles with food, tools, and labor. We call this system feudalism.
I'm back, guys. Did you know most of the bishops of the church become nobles that time? Obviously, the church has power. The powerful control of the church over the economic, political, and cultural life of the people brought wealth than corruption in the monasteries and up to the papacy. In this way, the image of the church looks bad. The church struggle for freedom from temporal control characterized much of the history from 18th to the 13th century. The conflict between church and state on 1773 to 1305 was particularly evident in the European countries of Germany, England, and France. The state always plotted and connived to gain control the spiritual sector. The church has struggled ceaselessly to maintain its sovereignty against the encroachment of kings and rulers. Bow.
Dito na si Chito Miranda.
Hi Chito! What's up guys? I'm about to discuss the beginning of the monastic reforms. In the Dark Age, yung ibig ko sabihin ng Dark Age is yung dawn of the century. In the Dark Age, the church recovered thanks to the monastic reform. The foundation of monastery of Cluny in 903 in France was founded by a duke. Duke, sila yung lower than the emperor and the kings. Okay? Cluny is a huge monastery joined all together. This is created a powerful spiritual force against the lay investiture. This is the power of the kings or nobles to appoint bishop in other prelates. Kung iahambing ko, in comparison, pero kung iahambing ko talaga, pero comparison sila, sa ngayong panahon, sabihin natin na ang isang pare ay ginagawa nilang senador, which is hindi tama. So ngayon, kung mapapansin nyo, walang paring tumatakbo na senador. Yun yung lay investiture noong unang panahon. Merong isang tao na nagngangalang siyang Monk Hildebrand, who become known as Pope Gregory VII, is very famous than Stephen de Leon. Hi Stephen!
Hey, what's up?
Conflict about the lay investiture. Siya yung kumalaban sa lay investiture and which nakalaban niya is isang emperor.
Who's that emperor?
Emperor, go! Henry VI. The emperor was forced to submit to the Pope's authority, to the castle of Canossa. Pope Gregory was finally lost in the battle, narrowly escaped from the emperor's troop, whose if Pope Gregory was not able to escape, he would become probably dead by now.
Why?
Yes. Go! Pope Gregory prepared the way to a powerful papacy to the next century to establish judicial structure of the church. In layman's term, Pope Gregory rest and plan ahead of his time. Ginawa niya yung live for today and fight for tomorrow. Hindi siya nagmadali na kalabanin yung emperor which alam niya na matatalo siya. So pinaghandaan niya yung battle. Para sa next century, mas magiging malakas ang laban nila para sa mga emperor. At dahil doon, the church came to seen as a visible heresy structural organization with supreme power vested in the Pope and his judicial vision, which is very pronounced kasi ang Pope is mababa pa sa Emperor. Ang ginawa niya is pinagpantay nila at dun sila nag-beat sa taas.
And why is that so?
Because of that. Question, guys.
What's your question?
What's the question, Neri?
Bakit pumayag ang mga bishop na maging na para sa lay investiture? Ba't sila pumayag na ma-promote? Lim, go! Good job, man. I like you. The second movement of monastic reform followed with Bernard of Clairvaux. He was one of the greatest spiritual leaders of Christianity. He became the counselor of Pope and the kings. Because of him, the ideal of the king and the Pope become more compact. Hindi na sila laging conflict, palagi na silang compact. That lead to the birth of two mendicant orders, the Franciscans and the Dominicans. Greatly inspired the renewal movement by advocating simplicity of life and rejection of church abuses. Alam naman natin nung unang panahon that church has so much power that some people can't handle it. Na dahil sa power na yon, they become blind of the society. The movement penetrated the universities and created the greatest theologians in the earth and even in the Mars. Dominican, Saint Thomas Aquinas, and Franciscan, Saint Beneventure. That's all for tonight and afternoon. Thank you.
Hello guys, magre-report na ako. Go. Reformation of the... Ayos na guys, ayos na. Continue, go. Reformation of the Church by Pope Gregory VII. The Church was struggle for freedom from temporal control characterized much of the history from 8th to the 13th century. Thus, when Hildebrand who took the name of Gregory VII, was elected in the year 1073. He formed the church by strengthening the structure of the institutional church and the power of the Pope. In his term, the church developed a wide area under him, known as Curia. Kumbaga sa atin, yung Pope, President. Tapos yung Curia, yung mga gabinete na tumutulong sa Pope. Was granted ordinary powers within the church that the Pope alone determines the nature and moral demands of the Catholic faith in the mid-11th century. Pope Gregory VII revived the long-dormant claim that final authority rested with the Pope. He issued a document, the so-called Dictatus Papae, Dictates of the Pope sa English, where he claimed the papal power, both spiritual and temporal, was absolute, and that the Pope was in all spheres the supreme head of Christendom. Kumbaga, ginawa ni Pope Gregory VII maging supreme ang pagiging Pope. This remained normative to many Catholics throughout the second Christian millennium. This reform of Pope Gregory VII also gave rise to the dominance of the Code Canon Law. Under canon law, the rules of the Church were strictly codified. This has the advantage of clarity of purpose, but the disadvantage of redefining spiritual matter in legal terms. The Church was defined more institutional terms, with the Pope as the supreme head and laity and priest and the total subservient roles. Gregory VII also intended to reform the Church's abuses by issuing a decree prohibiting a lay investiture under a penalty of excommunication. Lay investiture was the practice by which a layman would endow a member of a clergy with political office and power. Kumbaga, ang ginawa ni Pope Gregory VII, tinanggal niya na yung lay investiture. Kasi ito yung isa sa mga main reasons kung bakit nagiging corrupt yung mga clergy. Yan. Go. Good na.
Smile.
Gregory's main goal was the elimination of lay investiture, and the real power over the Church in Western Europe would be put back in the hands of the Pope. The Gregorian's reform also intended to eliminate simony, the practice of buying and selling church offices, and enforcing clerical celibacy. Simula noon, nagtagumpay na sila. Kumbaga, nag-success yung plano ni Pope Gregory VII na tanggalin lahat ng mga corrupt sa gobyerno. Yung ginawa ni Pope Gregory VII, nag-succeed siya sa mga popes hanggang 13th century. At narating nito ang rurok ng kumbaga sa tagumpay, pinakamataas na antas. Yun na.